If you're coding COBOL on a Microsoft Windows PC and you want to pass the switches and the command line to your program, I'll show you how to do that. I have a program, I just call it Program 01, and I will execute that from a command line prompt. When I do, it'll open another instance of the command line, and you'll see I programmed to look at the switches and any data passed on the command line, and there was nothing there. So it was just simply executing the program. If I put a switch in, which I programmed, /A, you'll see that my program has detected that switch A is on and nothing has been passed on the command line. I also programmed B, so I can see that both A and B are set and C isn't. I programmed A, B, and C. So program C has a little special twist on it. When I see C, I change the return code to 23. So if it's running in a batch and you want to check to see if there's any return codes from your COBOL program, I'll show you how to do that. Now, if you want to pass some text, like a file name, to your program without any switches, you can do that. And you can see no switches are set, and it's passed an 8-byte field called file.text, although you can program anything into it. So you could even put just X's or whatever you like, and you'll see whatever you put in, it'll pass and give you the length. Now, if you combine that with switches, and we'll do A and B, and you'll put a file name in, then you'll see it'll do both. It'll look at the switches and it'll pass the file name. The one quirk with this compiler is if you put the switches after the file name, it will not detect them as switches, it'll just detect them as text. Another thing, that if you don't program a switch in, and I've not programmed X, it won't detect that either. So I pass the switch X, but since I haven't programmed it, it will not pass. Also, you cannot use more than one slash. So say, for example, you wanted to pass A and B. This is not valid in this compiler. So if I said /A space /B, it's going to look at switch A, but since it can only look at one slash for switches, it's going to think the /B is text. So here's the source code for my command line and test switch program. You switch, or you define the switches as in the environment division, configuration section, special names. Option A, on status is switch A on. Switch B, switch C. And you can do the whole alphabet. The one key thing here is do not put periods after any preceding option definition. So here I have 3, A, B, and C, and I don't have periods after A and B because this compiler will give you an error if you have more than one option definition after a period. So you have to be sure to put the period after. I have a couple working storage sections, and here I have the linkage section. The linkage section is where I'm going to pass the command line text, and I have a definition length of S94 comp4, and I have up to 100 bytes of parameter I can pass. This, by the way, is identical to what the IBM compiler, COBOL compiler, will do on the mainframe. So just some notes I put in here. Switches must be defined first on the command line. Multiple switches must be grouped together with one slash. Example, program /AB, not /A/B. Text must be defined after the switches. So you see program name /AB, file name. If the switches are defined after the text, they'll appear on the command line. Upper lowercase doesn't matter with the switches. So some examples that I gave you in real time. Program name, no switches on, no text. /A, only switch A is on, no text. If you have just text, you'll get it with no switches. If you combine everything together, you can do A, B, and then the file name, and it'll come out. You can detect the switches and the name. If you put the switches after the text, they'll come out as just text. So here's the code for that. Really, it's very simple. I just check to see if every switch is on, if no switches are on, and if no switches are on, I just display a message. Then I check each switch to see if it's on individually. Then here's where I check the text. I move the parameter length to param just for the display. If the parameter length is greater than 0, that means there's something in the command line. I display what the command line size was and the text. Else I display a message, no command line passed. As a little bonus, I put in a test for switch C, just to show you that if you're running a batch and you want to return a special code, maybe you detected something in your program and you want the batch to know it, then and I have it here, if the C switch is on, I move 2030 return code, else it's just going to default to 0. And then I just do an accept for answer. So you can view the new instance that opened up. So that's how you do it. It's fairly straightforward. I would check your compiler to make sure it works like this. I've checked several compilers and they seem to all work together. But again, it's good to check. My next video will be on copybooks and some code that I've accumulated and show you how I code my COBOL programs.